Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us from all over Australia for our FBAA Digital Get Broker Fit Are You OK Day event for 2020. I'm Renee, Blethyn, National Partnerships Manager here at Suncorp, and I'll be your MC for this event. It is my pleasure and honour to be here with you today, whenever you happen to be streaming it on whatever device. Well, hasn't 2020 thrown a spanner in the works? But with that has come some opportunities, and we feel privileged that we can provide this wellness event digitally for everyone within the industry that will hopefully assist you no matter what you're going through. I'd like to start by saying that KitKat have teamed up with Are You OK this year in the hope that we can all have a break and ask, are you okay? So we encourage you all to grab a KitKat, check in with yourself, as well as someone else that you might not have checked in with in a while, and have a conversation that could change a life. And talking about a conversation, an important part of a conversation is the greeting. And even though I can't physically see you at this event, what I'd like to do is start today with a greeting that means I see you, and in seeing you, I bring you into being, because today's conversation is about seeing people for where they are and having someone hear you and be able to provide help and assistance that's tailored just for you. So that greeting is a Zulu greeting, and it's Sawubona, and I'm not from South Africa. It's not part of my heritage, but I feel really connected to that greeting in that when we greet each other, and whether it's digitally or it's face to face, that we really see the person that we're in front of, and we hear them and we listen to understand, not just to respond. And that's what today's event is about. So thank you for taking the time to join us and our amazing guest speakers. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. Amazingly, there's 1.5 CPD hours allocated to today's session. So please ensure that you watch throughout the whole session to ensure your attendance is marked. You'll receive an email following the session with the FBAA CPD code, and also a feedback survey to complete, which is really important for us in planning future events, especially around this important topic. I'd like to say thank you to Suncorp as the exclusive sponsor for this event, and it's unusual for an MC to also be part of the sponsor, so I'm here in two capacities, and I feel privileged to work for an organisation who takes mental health and wellbeing as seriously as what we do. Our purpose as an organisation is to build futures and protect what matters, and that purpose aligns with what all of the partners bringing this event to you are hoping to achieve. We hope that the information and tools that we provide today help you do that for yourself, which is build your future, the future of your families, your colleagues in the industry and your customers, and to protect what matters, which is you, your mental health, well-being, your physical fitness and your resiliency. Also to our keynote speakers who've given up their time to provide you with information to target common mental health and business needs that we're all facing, especially as a result of this pandemic. Then of course a special mention to Gavin Larkin and the commencement of this Are You OK campaign, with many others who've become involved, changing the lives for many Australians and beyond. There are also the Beyond Blue and other helplines that are available 24/7 should anyone ever need someone to talk to, so please don't be afraid to reach out. Please refer to the Get Broker Fit Are You OK Day brochure. You would have received this in the reminder email prior to today's session, or you can download it from the handout section of this GoToWebinar or the FBAA website in the upcoming webinars section. This outlines a bio on the presenters and also the agenda for today's session. So let's get into it, shall we? To get started, we are privileged to have the Australian Health Minister, Honourable Greg Hunt, joining us to provide a quick update and a message. So I'd like to formally welcome and say thank you to the Honourable Greg Hunt MP, Health Minister for Australia. Thank you for making the time to join us, and please share with us your update and message.
Well, welcome everybody to the Finance Brokers Association of Australia Are You OK Day digital event. This is about saying to people everywhere, particularly in the finance sector, but more broadly with your friends, your family, could be colleagues in different clubs or societies, or anybody that you know, it's okay not to be okay. Any one of us can suffer from anxiety or depression, from bipolar or schizophrenia. So many of us know or are deeply engaged with those that suffer from eating disorders, suicidality, all of the different parts of the pressures that we face with mental health. And so the starting point is to acknowledge that it can be any of us at any time. 4 million Australians in any one year who face some form of mental health challenge. So against that background, Are You OK Day is an immensely important part of taking care of Australians, of giving them the sense that it's okay to seek help, it's okay and it's normal to feel these different emotions, and for those emotions in so many cases to translate into formal mental health challenges. And so if we reach out to each other, and if we build that culture that people can reach out themselves in the dark of the night, whether it's Lifeline, whether it's Beyond Blue, whether it's Kids Helpline, whether it's Are You OK, and all of their amazing work. So to Peter White from the FBAA, I want to thank you and your extraordinary Finance Brokers Association. You do great work, immensely important work, and obviously we work very closely to make sure that your sector was protected, which was itself a source of stress. But now we're working with you on mental health, and we know that in particular the pressures of bushfires and COVID-19, the recession which has followed globally, and fortunately Australia is nowhere near as bad as the vast bulk of global countries, but it's infinitely worse than any of us would have imagined at the start of this year. And so those pressures will have a particular effect on your sector. So reach out and support each other. It's World Suicide Prevention Day, and coinciding with the work of Are You OK, that's an immensely important thing. So we take care of each other, we work together, and we save lives and we protect lives.
Thank you to the Honourable Greg Hunt MP, Health Minister for Australia, for sharing an important and relevant message and information for us. Now I'd like to move on to a welcome message from Peter White, AM, who's also the FBAA Managing Director. Before I introduce Peter, I just want to acknowledge that the passion for this conversation that he has is what's led to having this event today. He's been on quite a journey in trying to raise awareness around the conversation, and here we are with a national digital event in celebration of and recognition of Are You OK Day, having this conversation. So through his own personal experience, Peter identified the need for all of us in the industry to be aware of the support that's available, and it all starts with having a conversation. I know that you will hear the passion that he has for what we are trying to achieve here. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Peter White.
To Renee, and hi everyone, and welcome to our Are You OK Day. And thanks to our Federal Minister, the Honourable Greg Hunt, who has spoken to us this morning. Very much appreciate his time in talking to us. It's been great. And this year, I guess I'm very fortunate that normally when we're doing these presentations, I'm standing on a podium about to introduce a video clip on the history of the founder of Are You OK Day, and I choke on it every year. This year it's a little bit different thanks to COVID-19, so that won't happen. At least I hope not anyhow. But anyhow, look, thanks very much for joining us. And also a huge thanks to Renee and Suncorp. Renee is very kindly emceeing for us today, and Suncorp's our sponsor and have been the last year and this year going forward in regards to our mental health initiatives. So really pleased to have them on board. They're doing a really great job in supporting us with the initiatives, not just to our members, but broadly to everyone in the mortgage broking and finance broking industry. So that's really good. And I think well, there'll be some exciting things that'll come out of this, and you'll hear about those no doubt during the day. But anyhow, Are You OK Day is a very special place in my heart. I guess I took on an ambassadorship for this industry back some 5 years ago now, because I could see what was happening to colleagues and friends of mine with depression and anxieties, and the way they were being treated and looked upon because of those situations. We've taken that bull by the horns and we've turned what was almost a taboo conversation into something that is commonplace and readily spoken about throughout the entire industry. And again, I'm really proud and honoured to know that we started that conversation and where it is genesis today. And I can guarantee you there is a lot more to come, not just through the FBAA, but also through other things that I will be involved with as we go forward as well in regards to the mental health conversation. So I'll look forward to sharing those things as we get down the path of them coming to fruition. For now, we have a great day lined up for you, and sit back, relax, enjoy the conversations. There's a great workshop. Don't miss the workshop towards the end of this by Ash Playsted, and it is going to be a great session. So enjoy that, and our many thanks to the ambassadors from Beyond Blue and Are You OK Day who are also speaking with us as well. So thanks, enjoy the day, and I look forward to seeing you really soon. Take care and bye for now.
Thank you, Peter. We're all very lucky to have you as one of the leaders within our industry, not just for your knowledge and expertise within finance, but your continued advocacy into the health and wellness of everyone. What an amazing message to be receiving as part of this event today. Next up, we have a guest from Are You OK itself. As we all know, this past 12 months has been hard for many Australians who've been impacted by drought, bushfires, floods, and now the COVID-19 virus. This can take a toll on our mental health and wellbeing, and it's never been more important to look after and support each other during these tough times. So for those of you who don't know our guest, Stephen is the Are You OK Conversation Champion for Australia for 2019 and has been an Are You OK ambassador for the past decade. He is passionate about translating evidence-based research like Are You OK and mental health first aid into practice, and building the capacity of individuals, families, organisations and communities to be involved in mental health support and suicide prevention. Stephen believes that a lack of knowledge and stigmatising attitudes about psychological injury may prevent some people from seeking help early and limit the ability of co-workers and managers to provide mental health first aid to their workmates until the appropriate professional treatment can be sought. Stephen has been a great supporter of Are You OK and has a presentation pack that he'd like to run through, which will cover the key questions of when to ask Are You OK and how to ask Are You OK. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Renee, and hello everyone. My name is Stephen Dowling, and I've been an Are You OK community ambassador for the past decade, and I'm so pleased to be with you today. My presentation will take you through and answer a couple of key questions on when to ask Are You OK and how to ask Are You OK. We were founded in 2009 by the late Gavin Larkin. Unfortunately, Gavin passed to cancer in 2011, but his vision of Are You OK has been ongoing with the support of his family and a small band of volunteers. When I joined Are You OK a decade ago and would be walking down the street, people would ask me, so tell me, what does RUOC stand for? But 5 years on, Are You OK was well understood across the Australian community. 10 years on, Are You OK has been, most Australians have had an Are You OK presentation or event in their workplace, home or community. So Are You OK's vision is a world where we're all connected and protected from suicide. And our mission is to inspire and empower everyone to connect with people around them and support anyone that could be struggling with life. Gavin's view, and this is his quote at the top, in the time it takes to have a cup of coffee, you can have a conversation that could really change a life. Where do we fit? We're at the bottom of the pyramid, and we're in the informal services. So we're a group of people that share this knowledge throughout the community to promote self-care and the care of others. we then neatly dovetail into all of the formal services that are provided in the community through Beyond Blue, Lifeline, Headspace, primary care health services, psychiatric services in general hospitals, community mental health services, and long stay facilities and specialist psychiatric services throughout Australia. Here's a short video that will take you through how to use the Are You OK method, and I look forward to rejoining you shortly.
There's something we need to talk about. It's happening in Australia and will impact many of us. Suicide. An average of 8 people die by suicide every day in Australia alone. For every death, it's estimated 30 people will attempt to take their life. And 89% of people report knowing someone who has attempted it. So why is this happening? Research shows that when these 3 factors combine, it increases someone's risk of suicide. 1. Feeling isolated or disconnected from others. 2. The belief that they are a burden on others or society. And 3. Having the means to take their life. Are You OK is working to ensure everyone feels connected and is protected from suicide. We focus on reducing feelings of isolation and disconnection. But how do we do this? We all experience life's ups and downs and things like grief, relationship breakdown, financial difficulty, or losing a job. These moments can really challenge us. And sadly, many people feel they don't have anyone to confide in, but there is something that can help. You. Are You OK's impact is helping you make a difference to the people who are struggling with life. We do this by encouraging you to invest more time in the people around you, because when our relationships are strong, we're more likely to see those signs that someone's struggling. And when you see those signs, notice changes, or just feel that something's not quite right with your friend, colleague, loved one, teammate, or neighbour, we want you to trust that gut instinct. Reach out to them and ask, "Are you okay?" You don't have to wait until they're in crisis. The earlier you reach out, the better the result. We know it can sometimes feel uncomfortable, especially if the person answers, "No, I'm not okay." And that's okay. But you can make a difference if you follow Are You OK's 4 conversation steps. 1. Ask, "Are you okay?" 2. Listen. 3. Encourage action. And 4. Check in. By making time to look out for those around you, you can help people feel connected and help them access appropriate support long before they think about suicide. If we all meaningfully connect with those who may be struggling with life, we can increase people's sense of belonging and create a world where we're all connected and are protected from suicide. Ask, "Are you okay?" and start a conversation that could change a life.
So I hope you enjoyed that video and could see that anyone can use the Are You OK method. You don't have to have any expertise, just a genuine willingness to care for others. Of course, as we know with the Are You OK program, before you ask, "Are you okay?" you've got to be well within yourself. You've got to be comfortable. You've got to be in the right headspace to actually extend the hand of care for others. Let me take you through some of the issues that we've seen along the way in this journey of Are You OK over the past decade. How do I know if someone needs support? It could be a change in mood, a change in their physical appearance, changes in behaviour, changes in how thoughts are expressed, or they may have experienced a major change or be under a lot of pressure. Or you may see that they could appear to be overwhelmed by tasks that they had recently found manageable, but just are struggling with, through no fault of their own, to manage at this particular point in time. So, with the arrival of COVID, after we'd gone through a number of things in the Australian community, we'd had drought, we'd had bushfires, we'd had floods, and then COVID arrived. And certainly one of the big issues that we've seen is the impact of social distancing on relationships throughout the community, which puts even more people at greater risk. So what are some of the signs to look at during social distancing? Ignoring messages or cancelling virtual hangouts, posting more or less than usual online, or posting information at times that are irregular or out of the ordinary for the individual to be posting those sorts of things online. You will come across people that have experienced grief, and grief, never underestimate the impact of grief on people, particularly if something has impacted those at the kitchen table, the loss of someone or something that they care about. And for those that live alone, it may be the loss of a pet or the illness of a pet. Never underestimate what others could be grieving about, and value their grief and acknowledge their grief, regardless of the circumstances that they may find themselves in. You'll be hearing lots of people that are sharing information around you with job loss or reduction in hours of work or income within families, within friends. And you will bump into many people that could be feeling anxious, overwhelmed, stressed, lonely, or all of the above. And another issue I'd alert you to is they may have major health issues, and we know that the burden of disease doesn't stop when there's a pandemic. So it could be a range of issues that they're struggling with and they're not sure what to do. So if they, one of the suggestions that you could make is to ensure that they have a plan around any major health issue that they have. If they're not sure where to go, they're not sure what to do, encourage them to seek an appointment with a GP or a telehealth appointment with a GP to understand what are the implications of the major health issues that they may have and how to move forward that's safe for them and for those around them. The Are You OK conversation, as you saw in the video clip, is simple and practical and can be used by virtually anyone. As I've mentioned, asking Are You OK, you need to be comfortable within yourself, and the first person you have to ask, Are you OK, is yourself. If you've got ensure that you've got the right level of time and the right level of commitment to then follow up with the individual directly. How you listen is really important. Listening non-judgmentally is really important in terms of interacting with others. And certainly the third step, one of the insights that I'd provide you is when you're encouraging action, don't tell people what to do. I think all of us, if we try and tell a 2 or 4-year-old what to do, we know how they react. Try and tell a teenager what to do, we all know how they react. And if you've got friends that are 20, 30, 40, 50, and you see something that they can't see and you intervene and try and tell them what to do, we know the response that you get from those. And those that have elder care responsibilities, those that could be in immediate family, parents or grandparents or extended family, aunts and uncles that could be 70, 80 or 90 and you're close to, and if you tell them what to do, we know how they react as well. All said and done, people don't like being told what to do. So when I encourage action, I'm very mindful of the situation of the person that I'm with. If someone says to me, so tell me, Stephen, what should I do? It's like an alarm bell that goes off in the back of my mind. And rather than launch into telling a person what to do, I give them a positive affirmation around where they may find themselves in the situation that they're in, acknowledging that they've done the best that they can. I'm glad that they've shared this issue with me. And then I will suggest something along these lines. I may have some ideas that can help. Would you like me to share them with you? I always ask permission before I encourage people to action. Checking in is really important, and that's the fourth step of the Are You OK process. And certainly in my working life and community life, what I've seen is that when something really goes bang at a person's kitchen table, there could be a lot of support around them. But 2 weeks on, 3 weeks on, the people that were providing that support have been challenged by their own situation, their own family situation, their own work situation, and they may drift away to the point where normally around 6 weeks on or 8 weeks on, the individual that had so much support back here may be isolated and alone. Now, what that person may feel is that no one cares for them. That may be not the case. It's not that people don't care, it's just they've become really busy over those weeks. So going back to the person that could be struggling, once again, through no fault of their own, and checking in is really important. And sometimes apologising. Sorry I haven't caught up with you lately. Things that, our kitchen table just took over. And then I thought I haven't spoken to you for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, so I thought I better just catch up and see how you are. Really important. I think another key message you can leave with people that are struggling, once again, through no fault of their own, is don't be afraid to speak up and ask for the help that you need. I'll always be here. Even if I'm busy, I'll always come. Really important to share that message if people are struggling and need that level of check-in and support along the way. Some useful contacts for someone who's not okay is really important. So we've put together a list of community health lines that provide confidential, non-judgmental services 24/7, Lifeline, Suicide Callback Service, Beyond Blue, the Kids Helpline and Men's Line as well. You're able to access those, and if you're not sure, don't be afraid to call them, explain your situation, and they'll coach you through what you need to do, particularly if someone that you know, someone that you care for, could be struggling with the situation that they find themselves in. Don't be afraid to pick up, call, and ask what to do. They'll take you through it. We have a range of specialist programs that are available to at-risk communities throughout Australia, and one that I'd like to draw your attention that's not contained in that little overhead, but FBAA will provide you a link to, is a specific Are You OK program that's been developed for mental health. It's a mental health handbook for small business. So all of us know that many in small business are suffering, once again, through no fault of their own. So being able to download this information, perhaps provide it to them, once again, with permission, or read it through so you've got better context and background to provide that level of support is available to you. And I thank FBAA for providing those resources available to you. So here's a call to action for you. The Are You OK Conversation Challenge is something that you can do if you want to learn these skills. For me, these are learned skills. I've been learning these skills over many, many years and practicing them over many, many years. And you can start anytime, today, tomorrow, to kick it off. So there's a number of challenges in this material that you can take to broaden your horizon, more importantly, build your skills in having these sorts of conversations with others. Call someone you've lost touch with and reconnect. Check in with someone that you know is going through a tough time. There are many challenges here. And when you've done a challenge and when you've ticked some of these off and gleaned a bit more experience, don't be afraid to pass this on to someone who else is up for the challenge. In terms of wrapping up this presentation, the theme for this year's Are You OK message is there's more to say after Are You OK? And then you can see in the corner of this slide a little Kit Kat with Are You OK packaging in the corner. You'll see those in all supermarkets. So what we're encouraging everyone to do is take a break, have a Kit Kat. In fact, have 2 Kit Kats. 1 Kit Kat, think about any ideas that you may have seen in this presentation today that's useful for you. Caring for yourself is really important, particularly in the world that we currently live in. And with the 2nd Kit Kat, think about your friends, your family, your work colleagues, and remember, it's okay to say, are you okay? If you feel that anyone could be at risk, anyone that you love and care for could be struggling through no fault of their own, please ask simply, are you okay? It's a conversation that can really change a life. Look, a special thank you for FBAA today and also Suncorp for providing the sponsorship and support to be able to bring these messages to you. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your time. More importantly, stay safe, stay well, and stay smiling. Back to you, Renee.
Stephen, thank you for sharing such important and helpful information about how we can help those around us. Please refer to the ebook we have as part of this webinar for more information, as well as the Are You OK website if there's anything there that Stephen shared that you'd like more information about, and especially if you'd like to talk to someone. Next up, we have a short story from someone who's suffered from mental health but has got through it with the support of Beyond Blue. Beyond Blue is a national not-for-profit organisation that provides information, support frameworks and helpline support to be utilised by everyone in Australia. So stay tuned for this video now.
When I first went into that doctor's surgery, if I had one piece of advice for myself, is to be honest. I don't really know what's wrong with me, I haven't got any limbs hanging off or anything, but I could have gone in and said, hey, I'm struggling with this. Is this normal? Can you help me? I'm James. I'm a happily married father of 2. I live on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. I'm an electrician by trade, have been for the last 23 years. When I first started experiencing anxiety, now that I look back, it's been with me pretty much my whole life. And it's just something I came to terms with and dealt with and live with. As far as the depression goes, I'd be constantly tired and I'd have to fight all day just to stay awake. Couldn't concentrate for anything more than 2 minutes. It's just a constant feeling of, I suppose, worthlessness. I just wanted to shut myself away in a little corner and be on my own and sleep. This went on for quite a while. I didn't really recognise that I needed help, and that's what made it really hard. I'd be looking back and going, well, what have you got to be depressed about? You've got a beautiful family, a good job, you live in just the most beautiful place in the world.
Get the ball off them.
My wife probably did notice a few things, but I was very careful. I'd hide away and try and shy away from anything that showed where I was struggling with things. And even at work, I'd really became a good actor, basically. I got to a really low part where I was thinking I'm struggling to work. I'm struggling to deal with everything, and it was just, I was in a very dark place, and it's very hard to put into words, but it was, for myself, it was a horrible place to be. I happened to come across the man therapy on Facebook for Beyond Blue, and I thought to myself, okay, I will actually answer these questions and I'll be honest with myself, and I'll just see, just so that I can rule that out, because that's not what's wrong with me. And it advised me to seek medical help. Going into the doctor's surgery was, again, the hardest thing ever, because I'm sitting there and the first thing I said to him when I went in was, I don't really know why I'm here, but there's something wrong, and I want to be honest with you. And I told him all my symptoms. Having professionals, who can actually be there for you is extremely helpful. It's knowing that you can be totally honest with them and they've seen it all before. You're not the first person through the door with these symptoms. You're not the first person to go through this. It makes it so much easier. And talking to those people, it's great to have that good relationship with those guys. I needed to take some medication to help me through, which was very hard for me. That's part of society, I think, where there is that stigma around medication for any kind of mental illness is a sign of weakness, that you can't cope. After a few weeks of taking time off work and being on the medication, I finally found it was time to tell my wife exactly what was going on, and that was very hard. I'm the bloke. I've got to be there for my family. I've got to be the breadwinner. I've got to be strong. I fix all the problems. If something's broken, I'll fix it. I'm never the one that's broken. I'm never the one that needs fixing. With regards to talking to your workmates and everything, and even my friends outside who I go to the gym with, and putting it out there was like that whole weight being lifted off me, that there's nothing to be ashamed of. And as I was on my journey to recovery, I found more and more I needed people around me, and that's when I could rely on people, and having my family around me, it's great, to know that I've got that support, and it keeps me really focused. So I suppose when I was really struggling with my symptoms, for somebody just to come and have a chat with me may have helped, and I mean a genuine chat, not when somebody gives a throwaway statement like, how you going? The standard answer is, yeah, I'm good. You can see when you're close friends if there's something wrong with them, you can tell. And just being genuinely concerned for their well-being, it speaks volumes. Exercise is a very big part of my life, because if your body's not, fully functioning and fit, it's going to affect your mental health too. That's what I've found. Then to keep myself, I suppose, mentally fit, I make sure every day I stop, no distractions, and just focus myself, focus my thoughts, and stay grounded, and just see where I'm at mentally. One day when I was off work and really struggling, For some unknown reason to this day, I still don't know why, I wanted to just paint a picture. So I did, and it was pretty good. I didn't want to admit to myself that it was good because I was very critical of myself. Then I found I moved into working in black and white, which really reflected the mood that I was in, and all of a sudden I'd found a release for myself. I was actually invited by the local library to put a display up, and I thought, well, here's a good opportunity for me to actually use my art to help others. There was a letter the week after, and a letter to the editor, who really thanked me for standing up and coming forward and talking about the depression and anxiety, and that meant so much to me. When it comes now to working with Beyond Blue, I find that it helps me on my recovery journey by helping others. And it's good to know that what I say makes them feel that they're not alone, and if it just pushes them to go and seek help, it's all worth it for me. I don't think there's ever a finish line with a checkered flag saying you've come out of this now, you're better. It's about managing. So I've got a lot of tools in my shed now to get me by. So at the moment, for me, life's good. I've got my hobbies, I've got my family, and I've got my life back.
What a powerful story. Now that we know those associated organisations who provide support, we'll move into our first keynote speaker, and I'm really excited to introduce you to Rebekah Smith from Smith & Wellness. Rebekah Smith from Smith & Wellness is a subject matter expert in mental fitness, resilience and wellbeing, with a background in psychology, a decade as a physiotherapist, 17 years as a group fitness leader, and a current master instructor for the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute's Wellbeing and Resilience Centre. Beck feels privileged to be able to share her professional knowledge and personal experience to help other people live better lives. She'll be delving into how mentally fit are you. Over to you, Rebekah.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Renee, and welcome everybody. I hope that today you are okay, and I hope that throughout this session I can give you some tools and strategies for taking yourself beyond okay as well. I'm Beck Smith, and it's really, really lovely to be here with you today. I'm going to be proposing some questions to you, and the first one is, how mentally fit are you? As we look at ways to get broker fit together, there are 9 other questions I'm going to pose to you throughout this session today. And as you can see, I've given a few of my credentials down there in the screen at the moment, just to kind of go, yeah, you know, I'm talking with a sense of credibility in terms of my study, but I think even more importantly, where I come from that gives me credibility in talking about this subject is in recovering from mental illness myself. So as a teenager, I had an eating disorder, and then in my 20s, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder as well as post-traumatic stress disorder. These days, I still do see a psychologist, and I think any psychologist that I would go to see would say that I do not have mental illness. And that has been through no accident, but it's been through some dedicated hard work, both the work that I've done in the psychologist's office, but also a lot of work that I've done out in life as well. I'm really looking forward to being able to share some of the strategies that I've used for my wellbeing and my psychological fitness with you today. That also weaves in a lot of the science that backs up not just my experience, but it also shows from the experiences of many, many hundreds and thousands of people what we can be doing to make ourselves mentally fitter. So welcome, and thanks for taking this ride with me. If you have got a pen and paper handy, it would be really, really useful for you to maybe make some notes for yourself, maybe some responses to some of the questions that you can then go back to working with a little bit later on. So as we go through into this next slide, it's just a little visual here to show you that it's not just going to be a traditional presentation that I'm giving to today, and it won't be death by PowerPoint. This is going to be a little bit interactive. I won't be able to necessarily hear your responses, so obviously this is really confidential. So it's a great opportunity for you to start to delve into, in those quiet corners and recesses of your mind, what's going on that you could be able to dig into, to understand a little bit more, and to be able to shape for the betterment of your life. So each section of this presentation is not just going to be information giving. I'm going to be asking you these questions as we go through. So essentially this whole presentation is a little bit like an ongoing quiz. To give you a little bit of context for this quiz to start with though, There are these 3 layers that we're going to delve into in mental fitness today. So what makes somebody mentally fit? And is that different to being mentally healthy? I think that a lot of the approach around mental health is a little bit broken. The system that we work to and a lot of the conversations that we have around mental health are not necessarily useful. And one of the things that I think gets people really stuck, and certainly had me stuck for a long time, is this notion that you're either mentally ill or you're mentally healthy. And there's a bit of this kind of black and white conversation happening around, what we refer to as a dichotomy. It's either good or it's bad. But actually, I see mental health, mental well-being, psychological fitness as the spectrum. You can be ill, just like you can be physically ill. You can be healthy, and maybe that's okay, maybe that's enough for you, or you can be mentally fit, and that's where we start to optimize your mental health. So if you think about somebody who is physically fit, they've optimized their physical well-being. And so these 9 steps toward greater mental fitness that I'm going to be sharing with you today, well, they're just different ways of getting fit. Not everybody likes to exercise in the same way, and not everybody needs to exercise in the same way. Some of us are naturally more flexible than others, and so instead of doing more flexibility work, we might need to train our strength instead. Some of us are physically stronger than others, but maybe we've got a little bit of muscle tightness and we need to do some more stretching. So each of us needs different things in our lives, and this goes psychologically as well as physically. So we're going to delve into these 9 different ways that you can choose to be mentally fitter, and it might be here's step 1 through 9 for me, or it might just be, I think that step 5 is what I need right now. So feel free to look at these components like a little bit of a mental fitness smorgasbord rather than a recipe for you. So this first layer that we're talking about here with mental fitness relates to our identity. Now, identity is important because subconsciously it really informs the behaviours and the outcomes that we have in life. So for instance, if my identity, if I relate to being somebody who is healthy, I am actually far more likely to eat healthier food, to engage in healthier behaviours, and far less likely to engage in unhealthy things. If I think that I'm an unhealthy person, then my behaviours will probably reflect that as well. So how we see ourselves is really critical for how we show up in the world and how we perform. So one of the questions I'd like to ask you about your identity, and if you've got that pen and paper, you may like to jot down your responses to this. Question number 1 in our quiz. Do you have thoughts come up frequently for you that I am not enough? Now, this might be relating to something along the lines of I'm not enough, I'm not healthy enough. It might be I don't have enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough. But is this something that you can relate to in terms of your thought patterning? Are some of those beliefs that you have around your identity related to not being enough? Now, if you've answered yes to this question, the antidote and the key for addressing this, what we call a scarcity mindset or a deficit mindset or a lack mindset, is to look at what we have rather than focusing on what we don't have. And in terms of our identity, the key here is to start to look at our character strengths, those things within us as our traits, which are positive, which are useful. So ask yourself, instead of thinking I'm not enough, what do I have enough of? Are you an adventurous person? Do you have enough of a sense of adventure? Are you a kind person? Do you have a lot of kindness? Are you an energetic person? Are you a fair person? So the antidote when you do start to get into that trap of thinking I'm not enough of something is to think about what are these strengths of character that I bring and how does that make me me? So that's point 1, one of the key steps to building our mental fitness. The second question that I have for you, do you have thoughts come up frequently which are around I'm not as good as this person or I'm not up to this standard? This played out for me a lot when I was a teenager, comparing myself to other people. So it really played into the eating disorder that I had. I'm not as skinny as these other people. I'm not as fit as these other people. And that can be very, very detrimental to how we see ourselves. It also played out for me in terms of some of the hobbies and the pursuits that I enjoyed, like drawing and sketching and art. I actually stopped doing those things, even though I loved them, because I would say to myself, I'm not as good as these other artists, so what's the point? And I actually gave up doing it for a really, really long time, which impacted my well-being in a really negative way. So do you have what we call this comparison trap thinking coming up for you? Do you get stuck in comparing yourself to others or comparing yourself to a previous version of yourself? I'm just not as healthy as I used to be. I'm not as strong as I used to be. Do you get stuck in comparing yourself and maybe getting trapped in some impossible standards? Now, the answer to this can maybe be a little bit surprising for some people, but the antidote to getting out of that comparison trap and those thoughts of I'm not as good as is to practice creativity. Now, the way that creativity helps us is that it gets us out of that notion of having to standardize ourselves or compare ourselves to a particular standard. It helps us to start to recraft our identity and to get a little bit more literally creative around the way that we're seeing ourselves. Now, any creative pursuit will help you to do this. It might be that you engage more in art. It might be that you practice creativity by being a creative problem solver. Maybe it's that you invent some games to play with your kids. So there are so many different ways that you can be creative. Engineers are some of the most creative people out there. Even though you would normally put them in a box with scientists, scientists are really creative as well, creating hypotheses that then they go and test. So if you think about creativity in a broader sense than just art, it gives you a way that you can start to recraft your identity for the better and start to tap into this innate creativity that we all have as human beings. Now, the third question that I have for you, do you get stuck in thoughts of, I'm just not able to, I can't do that, it's too difficult? When we start to see ourselves from an identity point of view as somebody who's disempowered, as somebody who's unable to do something, it leads to this sense of learned helplessness. And what that often means is that our outcomes and our performance decreases, as you can probably understand. It also leads to disengagement. So we start to unplug from life. We start to unplug from people around us and unplug from the tasks that we're doing. Did you know that across much of the Western world, Australia included, about 75% of people in the workforce are disengaged in their jobs? They're not really loving what they're doing, they're not passionate about what they're doing, and they're not contributing a great deal either. It's kind of like they're just coasting. And maybe you're somebody who can relate to that. Maybe as a broker, you will be somebody who is engaged in what you're doing, but then outside of work, maybe you're a bit more disengaged with your hobbies, your family. Maybe you want to unplug from life when you kind of switch off from work mode. So often how this shows up in our behaviours, if we have this identity about ourselves that, oh, I just can't do that, or oh, I can't be bothered, is that we tend to avoid and we go into avoidance behaviours. So it might show up as you wanting to numb out from your day by watching too much television, by eating too much chocolate, by distracting yourself with certain things like smoking or alcohol or just binge eating. It's a really common behaviour that we avoid things that we think we can't do because there's so much discomfort in that sense that I'm not able to do something, that we then go into avoidance. So if this sounds like you, and if you've made some notes there to go, oh, wow, that really resonates for me, the key to overcoming that sense of avoidance and the identity around I can't is to practice looking at our values and to start living and aligning with our values. So the answer is not that you should be doing everything. The answer is not to try to switch off that belief of I can't and just turn it into yes, I can, and try to turn on your optimism instead of your helplessness. It's to actually align yourself with what's really important for you. And what the research shows is that so many people who are disengaged with what they're doing are actually out of alignment with their values and their top internal priorities. So do you have a clear sense of your values? I know for me, when I started working more toward my values around courage, showing up more courageously and being braver and taking risks, when I started to live more to compassion and try to be a little bit more gentle on myself and others, when I started to lean more into curiosity as a value, and instead of being judgmental, to ask questions about what's going on, that those things really helped me to feel more energized in my life, more engaged in my life, and as though I was being more of myself and more of my better self rather than just my avoidant self. So can you do some unpacking of your value system and what those values mean to you and how you can bring them into action? So altogether, these three elements make up the components that we form around identity. And it's really important to start with that, as I said, because your identity is going to feed so much into your behaviours, how you show up in the world, and then hence what your performance is like and what your outcomes are like. Now, there's another layer around mental fitness we're going to delve into here. And this second layer, which kind of zooms out from our identity a little bit, is essentially about how we relate to that person we think we are. How do we relate to that identity? So in other words, what is the inner processing that's going on in our brains? And if we start to get a better understanding of how our brains are working and how we're processing information, then we can start to work with our brain rather than against it. It's a little bit like in terms of physical fitness. If you understand how your muscles work, if you understand the direction of your joints move in and the optimum range of motion, then you can start to exercise in a more effective way rather than doing something that might injure you. So the first question I have for you to consider around your inner processing is, do you often feel as though you are emotionally reactive? You know, if something happens, do you tend to fly off the handle? And even if you're not flying off the handle and externalizing your emotion, do you go into some internal emotional turmoil? And or do you get a little bit foggy around what's going on for you inside your mind? Now, this is something that I feel really related into and fed into that diagnosis that I had of bipolar disorder. I was hugely emotionally reactive in my teens and my early 20s. If something happened that I found upsetting, I would get really upset. And if something happened that I found exciting, I'd get really excited. And so there was often not a lot of filtering of my emotions, or importantly, an understanding of where those emotions were coming from. So if you feel a little bit unclear in your thinking in terms of, gosh, why am I feeling this way? Or where's that thought coming from? Or why is this happening within me? Then maybe you need this key around self-awareness. So my self-awareness really started to develop when I started seeing a psychologist, and they helped me to realise that between an event happening in my day and how I felt about it, what my reaction was, there was this space in between where my thoughts were processing the information about what had happened. So it wasn't just that something would happen and it would set me off, it was my interpretation around the event. And so in terms of cognitive behavioural techniques, we sometimes use in the workshops that I teach this model called STR. So stimulus, what's the stimulus? So what's the thing that kind of generates the reaction? The R on the other side is your reaction to whatever has happened. And the T in the middle are your thoughts. So what are your thoughts and beliefs around it? For instance, recently I've been having some frustrations with a certain teenager that I live with, my stepdaughter, and feeling frustrated that she's not doing the things around the house that I've asked her to do. So it could be quite easy for me to go, right, Amber's not doing the things around the house I've asked her to, so I'm really frustrated. Naturally, one leads to the other, right? But if I take a step back and I start to think about, well, what are the thoughts that are happening in the middle there? Well, I have this thought that she's being lazy. Okay, that's making me angry. But go a little deeper. Maybe my thoughts there are that she's being disrespectful or she's being unloving. And actually that sense of upset that I have around the behaviours, the stimulus, are because I feel a sense that I'm being disrespected or I'm feeling unloved. And if I understand that about myself, that really changes the tone of the conversation that I'm going to have. Rather than being angry, I'm going to go in with more curiosity. I'm going to go in potentially with a little bit more compassion for her and for myself as well, and maybe just ask a few more questions rather than demanding or asserting my aggression. So how can you start to be more in your thoughts? One of the tips that I recommend that I teach in the mental fitness training programs that I run is to start doing some journaling around your thinking, even just an exercise we do called free script writing, where you just get to document whatever's coming to your mind right now, like you're just practicing strengthening your awareness muscle. Question number 5. Do you tend to slip into judgment, criticism, being overly critical of people, or even perfectionism. Now, this is also a big one for me. This is something that was passed on to me by my mother, particularly, who was a self-confessed perfectionist. And so for a lot of my life, I would be expecting a particular standard of myself and a particular standard of others. And if I or other people were not meeting those standards, I'd get really judgmental, really critical, and why can't this be better? Why can't I be better? Why can't they be better? So if you know that that's something that happens in your inner processing, if you're aware of that, and if you're starting to recognize that this isn't useful for me, the best antidote to judgment, critical thinking, not the good kind, but criticism thinking and perfectionism, is to practice compassion. It's to ask yourself, wait, am I doing the best I can right now? Or even just telling yourself, I'm doing the best that I can right now, given my circumstances, given the resources that I have. And maybe also asking yourself some questions. If you're feeling judgment around other people, anything that's overly harsh, is to think, are they doing the best that they can? Given the resources, given what they have, given the conditions that they've had in their life, maybe they are doing the best that they can. And there are some really lovely practices if you'd like to look up mindful self-compassion and other compassion meditations out there. You can do a search for them on Google somewhere. There's lots of beautiful resources for building your compassion. Question number 6. Hope that pen and paper is still ready. Are you addicted to being busy? Now, this can be a big one. Addiction to busy works out in real life in terms of being a workaholic. Maybe that's something you relate to. Maybe instead of being a workaholic, you just have a really busy mind that doesn't switch off. Maybe you have trouble sleeping. Maybe people have recommended to you before that you should maybe try managing your stress with meditation, maybe with yoga. And you go, oh, no, I can't slow down enough to allow that to happen. So if you're addicted to being busy, it might be playing out a little bit for you like it used to play out for me, which is that I would measure my self-worth by how productive I was being in my day. And my whole lifestyle became around staying busy in order to feel like I was more valuable, feel like I was more worthy. So if this is something that resonates for you, the antidote to this busyness addiction is to practice getting comfortable with stillness. Now, it's not necessarily easy, but I recommend that you start with small incremental steps if this is something that resonates for you. Maybe just try clearing your mind for a single breath. See if you can pause that busy chain of thoughts that keeps happening just for the duration of that breath. And then maybe later on, try doing it for 2 breaths, and then try doing it for 3. Because if you can't sit in meditation for 10 minutes, maybe it's just too long for you. Maybe you need to build up to doing that. Some people will sit in meditation for hours, and other people think that that's a form of torture. However, we all need to learn how to be still. Now, that might not necessarily work out for everybody in the same way. Maybe you don't necessarily feel like meditation or mindfulness are your thing. So maybe you need to learn how to still your mind by going for a walk in nature. Keep moving your body, but help your mind to be a little bit more calm. Maybe it's about giving yourself the space just to take a breath before you go into that next Zoom meeting. Maybe it's about planning your holidays throughout the year so that you know after a busy period, you've got some time out scheduled. So when I talk about stillness, I'm referring to mindfulness, meditation, sleep, any kind of rest that you need to recalibrate, because even the most high-performing sports car needs to stop for refueling every now and again. So these are the ways that we can start to optimize our inner processing. The third layer, and don't worry, this is the final layer, it doesn't get bigger than this. The third layer around building our mental fitness is to shift from inner processing and shifting from identity into how we connect to the outside world. So how do we start to connect to other people? How do we connect with our job roles? How do we connect with the world at large through expressing our identity and through harnessing our inner processing for the better? So the next question that I have for you relates to this 7th component. So quiz question number 7 is, how fake are you? This might show up for you in terms of feeling fake. So maybe you get a bit of a touch of that imposter syndrome kicking in every now and again, or maybe you are actually faking it. So the researcher Brene Brown, B-R-E-N-E, Brown, if you want to look her up, talks about these 4 Ps that we have when it comes to being inauthentic and fake. So maybe we please. Are you doing things just to please other people, but it doesn't really align with you? Do you prove? Are you trying to work to prove yourself to somebody instead of just being satisfied with you and who you are? Are you perfecting? You're trying to perfect things. We spoke about that a little bit when we talked about compassion earlier. Or are you performing? Are you a performer who, when they leave the house, you become a completely different person compared to when you're at home? So if you're not showing up as your authentic self, maybe it's time to start practicing, little by little, showing up with more authenticity. Now, this really makes a difference in your life when you start to understand the difference between fitting in and belonging. This is what I talk about a lot in my workshops and programs when it comes to authenticity. The difference between these 2 things is that when you're striving to fit in, you're doing things to please, perform, perfect, or prove yourself in a way that's not really you. So you're doing things for the sake of fitting in with other people, but they're not naturally you. You're changing something about yourself in order to be liked. Belonging is actually where you find that sense of connecting with others by just being yourself. So there are ways that you can start to shift from fitting in to true belonging. They're not always necessarily comfortable because it might mean that you ruffle a few feathers along the way, but starting to step into your authenticity little by little is a really important way of starting to connect more with the world around you. Because when you're not showing up as your authentic self, it's essentially like you leave the house every day with a mask on. Nobody gets to see who you are, and you're robbing the world of those gifts that you naturally have. Question number 8. Do you find yourself full of doubt? Are you somebody who's riddled by this sense of uncertainty? And do you need to have all of your ducks lined up in a row? Do you need to have a sense of certainty before you act on something? People who are riddled by doubt, people who really struggle with this, often don't take a lot of risks. And they will only take a risk if they're pretty sure of what the outcome will be, which means that they're not taking big risks. And that can mean that they start to lose out on opportunities. So are you somebody who has played it safe because of this sense of feeling doubtful about the outcome? If that's you, and if that has held you back from achieving things in your life that you really want to, that you're being drawn toward but you're too scared of, the answer here is to cultivate a greater sense of trust. It might be trusting yourself. It might be starting to recognize your own skills and your own abilities. It might be cultivating trust between yourself and other people. Maybe it's about taking some social risks. Maybe it's about showing up more authentically in a way where you're connecting with people differently. You're starting to take a bit of that mask off and show up as your real self and trusting that that other person will receive you in a kind and compassionate way. Maybe it's also about trusting the outcome. So there are some exercises that I take people through when I'm doing workshops where we might look at when are some of those lovely accidents that have happened in your life. You know, when something good has happened that was unintentional, or you thought the outcome would be bad, but actually in the long run it turned out to be a great thing. And when you start to recall some of those things in your life, then you start to realize that you can sometimes let go of that need for certainty. Because as much as you try to control the outcome sometimes, we just can't control everything. So maybe sometimes it's more useful for you to let go of that sense of trying to control, to accept that there's going to be some risk and accept that actually being uncertain and a little bit doubtful is okay. And I'm going to trust this and I'm going to act on it anyway. The last question I have for you today, in terms of how to build your mental fitness and what holds you back from doing that, do you get plagued by worry? Are you somebody who's a bit of a worrywart? Are you a bit of a negative Nancy? Do you see the negative things in everything rather than celebrating the positives? And if this is you, don't worry, because we actually have a negativity bias in our brain where we tend to put 5 times more emphasis on negative information than we do on positive information. So you know what? You won't be alone. And the antidote to this, if you find yourself being a negative thinker a lot, if you find yourself plagued by worrying, Of course, the answer is to practice positivity, but maybe not in the way that you think I mean. So positivity for me means embracing all aspects of the human experience. Positivity even means embracing negative emotion, because your emotion, whether it's negative or positive, acts a little bit like a guidance system for your body and your brain, pointing you in the direction of something that you could be paying attention to and maybe need to pay attention to more. So unpacking positivity is about understanding how productive negative emotions can be when you understand them, as well as leaning into and savouring positive emotions. So part of this is around being grateful for what you have. Part of it is about savouring those positive moments and those joyful parts of life when they come up, rather than dismissing them or downplaying them. So I hope that through exploring these 9 different components of mental fitness, and by asking whether maybe some of them resonate with you more than others, it's given you a strategy or 2 to build your mental fitness. Just like with our physical fitness, like I said earlier, there are different ways we can build it. And these aspects in the top left corner of the model here are all about developing our mental strength. So a little bit like weight training for our bodies, this is like what we can do to do some weightlifting and some strength training for our mind. The components on the right of your screen are around flexibility. How can we be more adaptable? And maybe that's what you need more than strength. And the parts at the bottom of the model are around endurance. What are these things that we can do to keep fueling ourselves, to keep going in the long run? Really helps our resilience and staying in there for the long haul. I'm not going to go into it too much today, but just to give you a little bit of a neuroscience pin to this, is that these strength exercises really relate to strengthening the left side of our brain. And if you're more kind of right side dominant, maybe you'd like to balance out by looking more at some of these activities. If you're more left side dominant, maybe you need to be practicing more of the right brain strategies, which are on the right side here. And parts of endurance in this framework help to connect all of those different parts of our brain together. So in closing, I just want to emphasize for you that you don't need to wait until you get sick, until you get unwell, until you get psychologically ill to wait to do this stuff. You can be partaking and improving on your psychological fitness anytime. So start working on your mental fitness now and do it on your terms. Do it now before you absolutely have to. Sometimes I think in my life it would be great if I had learnt this earlier on in my life so that I had some skills and strategies for not getting to that place of being unwell. And may you be able to do the same. May you be able to share this with your family, with your friends. And if you need some more resources, there's a whole free course that I've got available from my website. If you go to smithandwellness.com/resources, and there are a few other things there, a couple of downloads that you can play with as well. So if you're not sure where to get started in building your mental fitness, I hope today has given you a little bit of insight, and I hope that these tools will give you a little bit more, some playthings to go and work with, some different tools, some different weights, some different stretching bands, so to speak, for your mind. So happy mental fitness exercising, and I'm going to hand back over to you, Renee. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rebekah, for providing us with those useful insights and incredibly important information. I'm sure most of us will be able to adapt those steps to change the way we think to become more mentally fit and reach our full potential. Should you wish to know more information, I strongly encourage you to listen to her TED Talk, or even if you're interested in receiving mental coaching, Rebekah's details will be provided in the follow-up email. Our last presenters for today's Get Broker Fit digital event are experienced experts within the industry who are well known in helping business and mortgage professionals to excel without burning out. I'd like to welcome Ash Playsted and James Veigli from the 10 Times Broker team, who'll be taking you through a workshop on why it's important for brokers to plan, assess, and systemise their business for better mental health and how to go about this. Over to you, Ash and James.
Thank you, Renee, so much for that nice introduction. It's James Veigli here, and Ash, it's awesome to be here. This next half an hour is really going to be action-packed, so I hope everybody has their pens and paper ready to go.
100%, James. Fantastic to be here. So let's get straight into it, mate, and help these brokers get business fit so they don't burn out. And importantly, can write more loans at the same time.
That's what it's all about. So before we get started, a big thank you, of course, to FBAA Are You OK Beyond Blue, and of course, major supporter Suncorp for putting this on. It's an incredible event, and it's really a pleasure to be a part of this, to share what's inside our heads with you guys today over the next 30 minutes. Can't wait.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, James. And how good were the previous speakers? So just a personal thank you to Peter White, Stephen Dowling, Rebekah Smith, who spoke so passionately and intelligently about mental health and how it relates to the mortgage broking industry. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it as well. So we're going to shift gears, and we're actually here to talk to you about business health, and particular getting business fit. So the next half an hour is going to be action-packed, and a lot of stuff we're going to share very quickly. So grab a pen and paper if you haven't already now. For those of you that might not have met me before, a quick backstory for me. Started in the banking industry way back, probably 15 plus, almost 20 years ago now. Have actually been a mortgage broker like yourselves, and transitioned to being a mortgage broker specific coach 12 years ago when I started the business here. So we exclusively work with mortgage brokers and help them double, triple, even 10x their business, but most importantly, do it in a way that gets them their life back, building an incredible business so that they can give back and do amazing work in this industry. Love what we do.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there, James. We do love what we do. And from my personal perspective, a little bit about me, for those that don't know me. I've been in the industry, not quite as long as you, Peter White, but a long time. 25 years. I've been a broker, a very active broker. I've written somewhere around 1,000 loans myself through setting up and building and exiting 6 different mortgage businesses. And then in the recent few years, I've transitioned to being an advisor and a coach and a strategist for mortgage brokers, which is something that I really love. And it's all we do all day, every day. Right, James?
Yeah, we love what we do. It works fantastic. And hopefully we can share just a little piece of what's inside our heads today to help you get business fit. And let's get in with it. So first slide that I'd like to share with you is a little bit around why do we need to talk about this. I'm going to write on these slides. It's going to be interactive, and you can write these things down as well. So why do we even need to talk about business on a mental health day? So if we think about mental health, and I'm going to write this down in this box here, mental health. And we've talked a lot today with these amazing speakers on the personal side of mental health. And there's a clear link between mental health and you as a person, 100%. But then there's a extra piece of the puzzle. It's your business over here. So mental health is a very closely linked relationship between yourself as a person, what's going on inside your head, and what's going on inside your business every single day, every week, and every month. And these are directly linked. For example, I'm just going to highlight some here. So if your business is stressful and taking a lot of your headspace up, it doesn't matter how much good work you do on the personal side of things. You could be meditating every day, you could be breathing, taking time out, doing all the right things. But if your business isn't doing what it needs to do, then it's going to still arrive, you're going to end up in a red mental health scenario, right? So in actual fact, for us to be in the position where we have fantastic mental health, we have to have a great business, and we have to have strategies for managing our personal side of things too, don't we, Ash?
Yeah, I can relate to this so strongly, James, because this was me. Just a little bit more of my backstory. When I first started out back in the late 90s, full of energy, full of motivation, full of passion, it was a case of just doing. Just taking action, doing everything from A to Z within the business as an entrepreneur, which worked for a little while. And my system that got me through in the early days was really just transferring all of those thoughts, all of those things I had to remember, all of those phone calls, tasks, visits, updates into a Collins diary, right? And everybody knows what a Collins diary is. It's just a big diary. Maybe younger brokers might not know what a Collins diary is, but you older folks might. In actual fact, James, I've got to my right here, I've got all of my Collins diaries back to 97. and I occasionally review them. And the reason I do that is to remind myself that that is not the correct way to build a business that supports good mental health. As I'll probably talk about a little bit more, James, it really did lead me down the path of, a crash and burn process.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we'll get more to that stories throughout this next half an hour. So we're here to really focus on this side of the equation. And instead of being in an unfit business situation, we want to get you to biz fit. And everything we're going to talk about in the next 25 minutes or so revolves around getting you business fit. And in fact, there are 3 things that we're going to talk about as part of today. And that's, the first one is going to be the importance of planning when it comes to mental health. We're going to be talking about this concept of potential. And then third, we'll be talking about process. And these 3 Ps are what you need to be working on in order to get business fit. And when you get in a business fit scenario, taking care of everything that you've learnt today in the other sessions, those 2 things combined will result in a green tick on the mental health front. And that's exactly what we want for every single person listening to this today, right, Ash?
Yeah, absolutely, James. Let's jump into the planning section.
Let's do it. So let's go first into planning. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of planning, because what we see happening time and time again, just with mortgage broker after mortgage broker, I've been doing this over 12 years, coaching mortgage brokers. We see this a lot. And it's this, I guess, do mentality. So in these 4 boxes, let's just write down do. And that's a really big problem when it comes to business fit and mental health, because far too many brokers are in this situation where they don't really have a plan. There's no real plan. It's just do, right, Ash?
Oh, absolutely, James. And I've lived it, and we see it a lot. And it's part of the entrepreneurial journey. When you start out on this journey, it's do everything. There's just you, there's no staff, and you've got to do everything in your business, which is an asset. It works. You get a lot done and you become productive. But the danger is that asset can very quickly transition into becoming your greatest threat.
100%. So doing without a plan is just that scattergun approach, and it ends up in disaster. So no plan is what we see happening all the time. Another one that we see is what we call SOS, which is called shiny object syndrome. We see a lot of brokers get distracted constantly by new ideas and shiny objects, which instead of just going towards their goal, they're getting distracted and just spinning their wheels, and it's burning them out. And then the third thing we see happening a lot is multitasking. And I know multitasking is the sort of, in the corporate world, everyone's talking about how multitasking is a good thing. It's about the worst possible thing you can do in business. So by having no plan, being distracted by these shiny objects and multitasking, this do is actually resulting in a whole bunch of brokers who are distracted. It's basically draining them, so they're getting drained, and all too often we're seeing this lead into disaster. And when it comes to mental health, we see this all too often.
Yeah, absolutely, James. And it's probably worth relating a story about becoming a pro golfer. But there might be some people in attendance today who can relate to this. So my question is to anyone listening is, if you wanted to become a pro golfer, would you just go and do, or would you start with a strategic map, a plan, resources, and everything you need? It's amazing how often this happens, and I don't know any professional golfers winning tournaments by trying to out-hustle the competition. Yes, work's important. Yes, you do have to make sacrifices and get things done, but there is a process to follow. It's not just a case of diving in. And this is where it relates to golf, James, and I think anybody who's tried to get good at golf would understand. Everyone tells you, just get started, just practice, just get some clubs, just get going, and then try and retrofit a bit of a strategy later. Whereas at the professional level, it's 180 degrees the other way. It's work out the strategy and the plan and the map, and then get busy with executing it.
100%. That's what we're going to do right now. We're going to actually scrap the unfit method, which is do. Let's just scrub that out. And in fact, let's write down the business fit method. And it's not rocket science, but far too many people, mortgage brokers, don't do this. So it starts at the top with as simple as defining what your goal is. And once you've worked out what it is you actually want for yourself and your business, we then need to reverse engineer the numbers. What numbers do you need to hit every single day to achieve your goals? Now, once you know the goal and numbers, it's about taking that and formulating a specific plan of attack that will help you reach those numbers, which will get you the goal. And then back from there, we decide on what actions do we take every single day, every single week that will make the plan happen to get you the numbers to get to the goal. That's the business fit method. And there's a few things, I guess, that you need to think about in conjunction with this. And the first one is, let's call it smart scheduling. So smart scheduling is about defining, looking at your diary and scheduling things in blocks and just getting it done. Because, you know, doing randomly with an open diary is just a recipe for disaster. So smart scheduling is one. Having a really good support structure, form of accountability, is key to avoiding this do, shiny object syndrome trap that we see too many mortgage brokers trapped in. And I guess the third one is having a clear plan. So business fit is about having a clear plan, having a great support structure to make sure you get there, and scheduling your day to support that. See, when you do that, three important things happen. So instead of being distracted, drained, and on track for a bit of a disaster, what we see happening, especially with brokers we work with, Ash, is that this results in a level of clarity and a level of certainty towards actually achieving their goals. And when you have clarity and when you have certainty, that gives you incredible levels of confidence that you know what to do, you know what not to do, and you can just get on with building the business that you really want to hit those numbers and hit those goals.
Yeah, James, it's so true. And just to continue on a little bit from my previous story about my own journey, the process of just doing generated some immediate results. So I was starting to do some business, starting to make some money, starting to make progress. But I was getting busier and busier and found that it wasn't relating to being more productive and writing more loans. And I think a lot of people will probably relate to that. And this is when it started to affect my mental health, not just from an overwhelm and burnout perspective, but also from a focus and a clarity. Like I was really struggling to connect my actions to results. And I was thinking to myself, there's got to be a better way. And as obvious as it sounds, it took a really strong intervention from some mentors to sit down with me and help me understand the formula that you need to have in your business to connect actions to results. And there is a particular formula that I developed for myself that made it very, very clear and simple for me to say yes or no to any specific action based on whether it related to me getting to my goals. And that was one of the most powerful transformations for me personally that I went through. And it really forms part of how we relate with our clients that we coach as well.
Yeah, it does 100%. And we see it far too often just hitting the ground running and doing. But at the end of the day, that typically doesn't lead to the sorts of results that mortgage brokers want. And it stresses them out, burns them out, end up in not the best place. So we want to be looking at the business fit angle. So that's planning. Let's talk now and shift gears to potential. So this is a very different conversation. And in the same way, let's talk about the unfit way, and then we'll talk about the business fit way. So what we see happening a lot in 90%, probably 95% of mortgage brokers is this. We just see mortgage broker after mortgage broker saying yes, 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 all the time. And it's leading to this unfit business that is affecting their mental health. And what we mean by that is what we're seeing all day, every day when brokers come to us is that they typically are saying yes to all types of people. They're saying yes to all types of deals that come in the door, and they're saying to themselves, yes, I will do it. So those three things, saying yes to everybody that comes in, saying yes to all types of deals, and yes, I can do every single thing in my mortgage business. This yes, yes, yes mentality is resulting in a whole bunch of mortgage brokers out there that are overcommitted, you know, massively overcommitted and overworked. And what happens when you're overworked and overcommitted, as much as you love this industry and what you do, we've unfortunately seen this a lot where mortgage brokers get over it and they burn out and sometimes leave the industry. And it's a result of saying yes, yes, yes with no filter.
Look, guilty as charged, James. Guilty as charged. You know, this is part of the entrepreneurial journey too, is you say yes to everything. And it's because the industry is perceived as a sales industry, and sales are obviously critical. So you do say yes to everything. It is one of the most dangerous traps. We call it the unicorn trap, of course. Unicorns don't exist, but we see brokers saying yes to everything and building themselves as the unicorn in the business that does everything. It's a really dangerous place to find yourself. So on the other side of it, of course, I mean, it's probably worth considering what happens to you as a person, what happens to your business, and what can happen to your brand if you do say yes to everything, James. And a good example of that would be, I call it the tradie example. If anybody's called, and you know, due respect to any tradies listening, potentially, that if part of the issue in the trades industry is when you call someone out to do a job, whether it's a plumber, an electrician or whatever, the general comment at the other end of the phone is yes, 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 yes to every possible client, booked into your diary, you know, be home tomorrow between 12 and 4, I'll be there at your place to do the job. So you patiently, you know, you organise the kids, you know, you get time off work and you sit at home between 12 and 4, patiently watching your watch, waiting for them to turn up. 4 o'clock comes and goes, no tradie, you track them down the following day. Where were you? And their response is quite often, well, I was really busy, I didn't get there, what's your problem? Now, everyone would have experienced that, James. That is a direct result of saying yes to everything. And this is why that example, I think, will relate to a mortgage business where you start saying yes to everything. It's a very dangerous treadmill to get on because it's very hard to get off, and it's very likely to lead to delivery issues with your clients.
100%. That's totally it. Overcommitted, and disaster tends to happen from there. So let's scrap that. Let's think about making this business fit instead. So the 4 things that we need to do and keep in mind, instead of just yes, 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 and then burning out, it's we have to understand our capacity as a mortgage broker. How many loans and meetings and people can we see day in, day out, week in, week out, without burning out? Instead of just saying yes, 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 and then in 3 weeks' time realizing that you have no time and 40 files piled up on your desk. You have to understand capacity. Second, understanding of efficiency is really important. And then the critical thing is building systems and then team into the business. That is what a BizFit business looks like. Understanding capacity, being super efficient, building systems and team, because let's talk this in more details. So knowing capacity. When you know capacity, you understand, a little bit like a doctor's surgery. They allow a certain number of appointments every single day. There's certain appointments there for overflow. They don't keep saying yes to every single person that picks up saying, that rings up saying, we need to see the doctor today. They say, no, we're busy. Try tomorrow, try next week. So you have to know your capacity. Second, we highly recommend brokers specialize. If you say yes to every type of person and deal out there, you're constantly researching and figuring out how to place a deal. It's far better for you to specialize in a smaller area of the market and do more and more deals of that type. It's much more efficient, and that's what sustainable businesses are about. And then it's about building systems and team, isn't it, Ash?
Oh, absolutely, James. And the message here is it's not about working harder. I know that might be counterintuitive because, you know, we're brought up in an environment where working hard is a great attribute, and I'm not disagreeing with that. But the problem is, and certainly in my situation it applied, is you can't just build a business relying on your own ability to keep working hard. You have to transition to relying upon systems and processes, not your own ability to figure everything out.
100%. And when you do this right, and when you get this potential right, it actually becomes sustainable. You're not overcommitted, you're not overworked, you're not leading down that road of being over it. It's actually sustainable. It becomes satisfying. You start to enjoy more and more the work that you're doing. And most importantly, it becomes scalable. It's something that you can grow without having to grow the number of work hours you are putting in, which is not the way to do it.
Yeah, the turning point for me with the yes side of things, James, was many years ago. This is back in my Aussie Home Loans days. Great company, Aussie Home Loans, back in the late 90s, getting leads delivered to me. And I would just say yes to every lead all across regional Victoria. And I would just drive far and wide, hunting and gathering business as I could. The problem came to a real head for me one day when I got this lead, right, James, and I hope this story is relatable for people, is this lead was in a country town about a 3-hour drive from where I lived. So, I took off at 6 o'clock in the morning, got to this guy's business, which was a little supermarket in this country town, walked into this guy's business and said, "G'day, can I speak to Michael?" That was his name. And the guy said, "Yes, I'm Michael. How can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I'm Ash from Aussie Home Loans. I'm here for our appointment." And he looked at me and said, "Oh yeah, I don't need you anymore. I should have let you know." And he turned around on his heels and walked off and never said another word. So I picked up my jaw off the ground, scuttled out of his office, steaming, sat in my car and made a solemn vow to myself at that point. I'm going to deal with this yes mindset of being a servant. And this is one of the greatest lessons, I think, James, that's part of good mental health in business, is positioning yourself as the doctor frame, i.e. the solver of problems, rather than the servant who does everything the customer says they want them to do. It was a great lesson for me. It was a 6.5-hour round trip with no business. And more importantly, though, for me, it forced me to find a better way, which was to transition my positioning with clients to being the authority figure rather than the servant. So that's part of the yes mentality. 100%.
So that's planning and that's potential. Let's switch over into the third piece of the puzzle, which is process. And with process, again, we've worked with hundreds of brokers over the years, and this is what we see happening all the time with process. What we see is this: me, as in everything relies on one key person, that key broker. That's everything is in your head. We notice that when everything is in your head, well, think about the mental capacity of that. Like, there's only so much stuff you can keep inside your head. Your brain, there's a limit to it, and that's why stress builds up. You're trying to keep all of these things inside your head. And the other key thing is, when you have everything in your head, everything relies on you, and it means you can't hire anybody because you have no systems in place. Without systems, it's very, very difficult to hire. So what results when everything's inside your head is it relies on you to remember to do it. If you forget to do it, it doesn't get done, and that can be disaster. It can be losing clients, it can be settlements or something bad happening. When everything's inside your head, we see that everything is typically reactive, and it severely restricts your business. And this is, we see it all too often, everything in the head, relying on remembering. It's ad hoc, reactive, and those businesses are just severely restricted by that key person.
Oh yeah, see it all the time, James. Look, and I think it's worth jumping in here and playing a little game. So if everybody could pick up a pen or pencil and some paper, great. So hopefully you've all got a pen and a pencil, and just play along with me here. It'll only take 1 minute. I want you to write down I want you to remember 5 words, I should say, James, my apologies. I want you to remember 5 words, guys, no pen and pencil or paper. The 5 words are phone, flower, coffee, book, baby. Right, you've remembered them? Now, have a quick think about all the deals you've got on the go and all the things you've got to do. Now try and remember what's missing from your fridge. What do you need to buy on the way home? And now remember what you've got to do this weekend and next weekend and the weekend after. Now, tell me what the 4th word I asked you to remember was. And hopefully you didn't write it down, not yet. Now, how did you feel? Were you a little bit overwhelmed? Were you scratching through all these thoughts in your head trying to remember the 4th word? I'm pretty sure you would have been. It's a good example of what happens when you rely on trying to remember everything. It's overwhelming.
Totally overwhelming, and far too many people. It's not the way to build a business. It's a disaster waiting to happen. So let's, just like we've done in the past, Ash, let's scrub that out. Let's talk about the BizFit method of what you've got to do from the ground up. So the first thing you've got to do is what we call a brain dump. You have to get everything out of your head. And when everything's out of your head, you can then start to piece together a flow and systems, standard operating procedures and templates for you to follow and for your team eventually to follow too. And then we want to look at implementing and using smart pieces of tech and software to automate the business as well. And then finally, we inject team. You got to get some help so you can focus on what you're best at and offload the rest. Now, here's what you've got to do. So what this does is it allows you to get a clear headspace, which is essential to delivering a great experience as a mortgage broker. Having these things in place also allows you to actually switch off. When everything's out of your head, you can actually switch off in your downtime, free time. And it will also allow you to grow your business into the future because you've got systems and tech. You can grow team and scale everything and all of your hard work. So when you do this, instead of relying on remembering, what we're actually doing is we're developing a process. And by having a process, we can then be super proactive with our leads and clients and everything we're doing in our business. And when we are proactive, it leads to clear progress forward and a true business that you're building that's going to work with or without you.
Yeah, James. And look, just to finish off my story from before, now is the time to run that example with a pencil and paper. Write these 5 words down, and this will articulate why this is so important. The 5 words to write down are phone, flower, coffee, book, and baby. Now, it doesn't really matter how distracted you get. It doesn't matter how much information is thrown at you. You can't forget. If I say to anybody, what was the 4th word you wrote down? You'd all go, look at your documentation, and you'd say book. So the example here is the difference between documenting things that are in your head versus relying on your memory to get things done. Doesn't really matter that I got it back to front. The point of this example is the difference between memory versus documenting. That's the key lesson here, James.
Never rely on remember. Exactly. So we've talked about planning. We've talked about potential. We've talked about process. They're the 3 Ps that you've got to consider and implement in your business to get business fit. Let's do a quick summary, and because I know we're short of time, we'd love to spend hours with you, but we've only got 30 minutes. So let's do a quick summary. In terms of getting business fit, we obviously don't know each of your businesses, and we're not saying they're unfit businesses, but you're starting over on the left, whatever that is for you. And instead of doing things randomly in all sorts of different ways, we want to get over here, which is BizFit. And there's only really one way to getting there. You've got to do the steps. You've got to become aware of the situation, right? You have to recognize that my business is unfit. And I'm going to commit to improving it, to improve your mental health ultimately as well and get to your goals. Once you're aware, you've got to take the right aim, set that goal, get the right plan so that you get on track. And then once you've done that, then you go out and act. You take smart, consistent action. And when you use this flow, your business over time will build and become biz fit, write more loans without, with no stress and with an amazing business. And obviously we've had a short amount of time with you today, and it's been a lot of fun to share what's inside our 10, 20, 30 years worth of experience. We'd like to, I guess, invite you to dive a little bit deeper with us in helping you accelerate getting your broker business fit. We run these workshops online. We've got a couple more coming up this year in October and November. It's called the $100 Million Blueprint. But essentially what it's about the formula, model and plan to developing a business fit situation, whether it's 20 million, 50 million, 500 million, the numbers are relevant. This is about developing a business that works with or without you. It's a great opportunity to dive deep with us if you like. If you'd like to do that, we'd like to offer FBAA members, just write this down. FBAA members, we would like to offer you a 50% discount to come along and check out that workshop if you like. That's the code, FBAA50. And if you're interested, you can jump across to this workshop site. You can write this down. It's brokerworkshop.com. And if that sounds interesting to you, well, that's just done some weird stuff on me. If that sounds interesting to you, we'd love to see you there and share more deep dive with you about getting your broker business fit.
Yeah, thanks, James. And I hope everyone's really enjoyed this overview of the connection between business fit and mental fit. At a personal level, James, I'm extremely passionate about the mental health of mortgage brokers, and I've experienced the downside of not getting it right. Many years ago, my world came crashing down. Everything that I valued in life was threatened to be taken away from me. And that was because I was trying to do everything. My business wasn't fit, and I got away with it for a while, but eventually it caught up with me. And that's what drives us now to focus on the connection between systems and processes and being business fit and being mentally fit. And everything that goes with that, your life, your family and everything else. And it's all built around sustainable capacity that you can see yourself doing for as long as you want to. So yeah, we'd love to see more of you guys in our workshop, but at the very least, take away that important message of the connection between healthy business, fit business, systemised business has a direct connection with good mental health.
100%. And I guess that's our time up. So again, it's been great to be a part of today. Hope you've enjoyed this session, and obviously there's lots more if you'd like to dive deeper with us, but enjoy the rest of your day. And I guess we will hand back to you now, Renee.
Yep, thanks, Renee.
Wow, I found that very intriguing. Know that I'm a culprit for multitasking. However, from listening to how the brain works and the fact that you're actually more productive by focusing on the task at hand until completion, I'm definitely going to change my ways moving forward. I can't thank Ash and James enough for coming on board to share those strategies with us, and their details will also be provided in the email following this session if you'd like to access their blueprint. Well, that brings us to a close for today for our digital Get Broker Fit Are You OK Day session. Once again, I'd just like to extend a thank you to our exclusive sponsor, Suncorp, who I'm privileged to be an employee of, to the FBAA and Peter White, the Honourable Greg Hunt, Health Minister for Australia, and the incredibly important organisations Are You OK and Beyond Blue, to our keynote speakers, Rebekah Smith and Ash and James. I know that just like I work on my physical fitness, I also need to continue to work on my mental fitness. And after today's content, I'm sure you can agree with me that there's a lot of support mechanisms out there to assist with this. Please download the ebook for links to resources from the presenters today. From a Suncorp perspective, our wellness partnership with the FBAA is continuing, and we've got an important initiative coming soon, so look out for more information to come. You'll receive an email following today which will include your FBAA 1.5 CPD hours and relevant code, and a short feedback survey to ensure we're targeting your needs. You'll be able to watch back this recording on the FBAA YouTube channel, which will be on the link, a link in the email. Please feel free to pass it on to anyone else who might be struggling and who you think might benefit from the information you've seen today in this webinar. During these times, it's more important than ever to ask those around us, are you okay? As we close out today, we want to encourage you to take a break, have a Kit Kat, and using this Kit Kat as an example, who in your life could you ask, are you okay? And share a Kit Kat wafer with. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.